Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Happy National Pink Day. I couldn't resist making a video to celebrate such a fun day because after all, the best things in life are pink. I have two cards to share. For my first card, I'm using an assortment of Queen & Company paper collections. I searched through and picked out just the pink patterns. And I'm using a die from Pretty Pink Posh. This is one of their stacked edges borders. It's set number 1, and it's this fun chevron design. If you've watched some of my videos over the past few months, you'll know that I love using these stacked edge dies. So I do have a link provided in the description box if you want to go and check them out, because I will be using them quite a bit. So I have an assortment of patterns all cut out with that die, and then I have a piece of white cardstock. I cut it to 4 by 5 1/4, and then I just covered it with ATG tape. And now I'm just laying the die cuts right on top of that paper. So I did speed this part up quite a bit, trying to make sure to mix up some of the lighter patterns with the darker patterns, and then also not having polka dots next to polka dots. I ended up having one extra. So once those are all attached, I just flip over the paper and then I can trim off the extra. And this step is easier to do if you flip over that paper, since you can just follow the cardstock. So now I have the main background all complete, but I do need to add a little bit of sparkle. So I'm using some Love from Lizi peel-offs. This is the pink holographic color. This is definitely one of my favorite colors. I'm using the thinnest width, since there are 3 different widths on the pinstripe style, and I'm just putting it to the inside edge. I left a little extra hanging off of the ends, and now I'm going to use an X-Acto knife and miter the corners. So it's going to create a frame. Then I'll just pull off those extra little pieces. And now I'm going to layer this on some cardstock. So I'm using some white pearlescent cardstock and then also some glitter cardstock. I did use a rectangle die and cut out the center of that glitter cardstock. I recently shared a couple of videos where I didn't use that inside area of the specialty paper, and I think I panicked a few people. So I made sure to cut out that inside piece. So now I can use that other piece of glitter cardstock for another project. But because this does have a little bit of thickness, I will need to add something to that center. So I just used some white cardstock that I have for my card bases and filled in that area. I'm just going to layer all these pieces. I didn't get that on straight at first, and I did also need to trim off a little edge. Now I'm going to use some liquid adhesive to adhere this to the glitter cardstock, since ATG doesn't hold very well on glitter paper. So now that that's all in place, again, I had to trim off just a little bit on the bottom of the card. Next, I use a tag die from Pretty Pink Posh, and the pink paper is one of Queen & Company's matte stack solids. Since this is a fairly thin paper, I wanted to add a little bit of stability. So I also cut out that tag using some white cardstock and then just adhered the two together. Then I punched out a hole on the top of the tag, and I'm going to add some Queen & Company twine. This is the pink and white color. Just thread that through the hole, trim off the extra, and I'm going to pop up this whole piece using some foam dimensional tape. But just to make sure the twine doesn't come free, I did put a small piece of Scor-Tape on the back side. And I make sure to get good coverage with the foam tape so there isn't one side that sags at all. Remove the backing. And I noticed some of that white cardstock was peeking out on the side, so I just trimmed that off with my scissors. Now I'm going to work on the sentiment. This is a die from Honeybee Stamps. It's one of my favorites. There are actually 3 dies in the set. So you can do a couple extra layers, but I'm only going to use the hello and then also the very background die. And I wanted to add a little extra dimension, so I cut out the hello 3 times, and this is using some white pearlescent paper, and then I'm just going to glue all 3 of those together. And then I can glue those onto the glitter frame. I really wanted to have a lot of extra sparkle on my card. So that's why I left that frame on the wider side. So I'm going to use my acrylic block to make sure that glue adheres. And then I can attach it to my tag. And I'm just going to put it slightly off the edge on the right hand side. Wanted to make sure to leave some space to add some pretty flowers. So these are some dies from Queen & Company. It's one of their foundation die sets. It's set number 2. Probably my most used die set by Queen & Company. On the largest flower, I added the medium size, and then I'm just trying to figure out placement for this last flower. I decided it needed a little more dimension, otherwise it was kind of getting smushed underneath that tag, so I just add one more of the thin foam squares. And now I'll finish off the card with some embellishment. I'm using all Queen & Company bling. I pulled out a few extras that I ended up not using, and then I'm changing my mind on the flower, but I end up putting it right back where I had it to start with. So again, trying some more bling, and I settle with just some of their petite posies and their jelly gems, all in the pretty pink color. So I love how pink this card turned out. Lots of extra sparkle. Even the white paper that I have on there is some pearlescent paper, so it still has a little bit of shimmer. And there is my finished card. And I will have links to all of the products that I used in the description box below if you want to recreate this pink card, or you could do it in another color. That's okay too. So now moving on to my second card, I'm using some leftovers from the June 2020 Love from Lizi kit. This kit has already sold out, but Lizi was able to restock some of the components of the kit, so you can still buy the paper, the stamp sets, even the ephemera pack. So if you are interested in any of those, I will add links in the description box below. I decided to use this sweet kitty paper since I hadn't used it for my 10 card video. And I thought it would be fun to use the Mojo Monday sketch number 539. This is the sketch I have posted for my newest Kristie's Card Challenge. This pattern paper does have larger images, but I am trying to make sure not to cover up a couple of them. So I have some solid pink cardstock for that strip on the left-hand side, and I'm just adding a matted layer with a darker pink cardstock. And all of my matted layers are an additional 1/8 of an inch more than the measurements listed on the sketch. For that white strip and then also that banner, I did add some scrap cardstock pieces on the back side, just trying to keep everything nice and even since they are going off of those other layers. And I'm using some of the pink satin ribbon that was left over from the kit, putting 2 strips of it across the card. I added the ribbon to that white cardstock just for some extra stability. And then I'll just wrap the ends around that card front, adhere them with some Scor-Tape just to make sure they don't come loose. And then I'll add this to some white pearlescent paper. So this card is also going to have a double layer. So just a little bit of the white peeking out and then again onto the same pink cardstock. And then I'll adhere this onto my card base. And I can start working on the image. I have one of the ephemera pieces, another darling little kitty cat, and I'm going to add it onto this stitched circle die cut. I wanted to add just a little bit of color to the background so that the kitty doesn't get lost on that white paper. But the first attempt, I think I had a heavy hand and I got way too much pink. So I switched blender brushes and now I'm getting a nice soft look. I'm using some Distress Oxide ink. And I'm going to go ahead and add that circle onto a scalloped circle die cut. Just use some liquid adhesive to adhere those together. I'm putting just a little more ink on the outside edges using the leftover ink on the brush. Before I can attach this circle die cut, I'm going to add a little bit of foam dimension just to the areas where it's going off of those other layers. I'm going to have some in that upper right hand area and also the lower right hand side. And then I'll use some thinner foam squares on the left hand side of the circle. I just keep holding the die cut up to the card just to see where I need to add a little extra dimension. So now I can adhere it to my card, trying to make sure to get it placed correctly. And then I'm going to pop up the kitty using some of the thin foam squares. Adding that extra dimension gives a little more definition between the kitty and that background. I love this sweet little sleeping kitty cat. And now I'm going to use one of the sentiments that's included on the stamp set that came with the kit and is now available individually. So I stamped out "Enjoy the Quiet." Did that on some white cardstock, and I'm just doing a fussy cut all around because I didn't want it to be the main focus on the card. I was just trying to figure out where to place it. I'm just going to tuck it in above the kitty. I add a little bit of foam tape on the right hand side just to keep it nice and even. And now to finish off the card, I cut out a couple of the little hearts. And this is that same pink cardstock that was on my first card. So I did make sure to use those scraps. Putting two of them right above that sleeping kitty. And then one final touch, I'm using the Nuvo drops that are included in the July kit. This is the Morning Dew color. And this is really fun since it dries clear. It reminds me of glossy accents, but it seems to hold the shape a little bit more. So I just sprinkled those around the card, and I love how this one turned out. Again, lots and lots of pink. I thought it would be fun to add this as a bonus challenge. So if you want to make a pink card, you don't have to use the same sketch. I just want to see lots and lots of pink on your card. So you can head over to my Instagram or my Facebook page. Use the hashtag kristiescardchallenge if you're entering it on Instagram. As always, there is no time frame. Just join along when you have the chance. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.